Lovely. Yeah, so recording has now started. So welcome everyone to the introductory webinar for the beta phase. This is our second one of these, so thank you very much for taking the time today to sit and listen to us talk for a bit, and hopefully be able to answer any questions that you've got on beta and where we're kind of aiming to get to at the moment. So just to give a bit of an introduction, so I'm Emily Carter. I'm one of the project managers working on Data Futures. I've been on Data Futures for a number of years. I've been here right from the beginning, so I've been through all the highs and lows. We've also got, there's a number of other sort of HESA colleagues that are also on the call, and we will look to as they come in, I'll let them introduce themselves, but the majority is you'll have me chairing for today, and then Helen Burks, who's our project coordinator, who's responsible for helping deliver beta, and will be doing the majority of the talking today. So a bit about beta is, if we can, so essentially what we'd like to do today, just to sort of get us going, is, if you don't mind, in the chat, if you can put kind of your name and organisation of where you're attending from, that would be really helpful, just so that we know who's here. So then again, we can kind of make sure we keep in contact going forward, know who's listened to us directly and who needs to catch up. So if we need any other further conversations, we want to, I know something that came out of yesterday's session that we had is actually, this has been a really good opportunity for people to collaborate and network a little bit, and kind of say, oh, actually we are similar in kind of our makeup of provision and those sorts of things, or same software houses. So again, if anyone is comfortable doing so and does want to kind of open that collaboration up, we did find that yesterday people were willing to share their email addresses. So again, if you're comfortable doing so, something to consider as we go through, because we did it in a bit of a 2-minute rush at the end of the session yesterday, so just to give a bit more opportunity to do that throughout. So what we'd like to start with today, just as we kind of, before we start really going into nitty gritty, is doing a couple of polls. So hopefully, Lisa, if you don't mind starting the first poll for us, that would be lovely. But we'd be really interested to kind of find out why you've applied to take part in beta. We like it to be, sort of a couple of 3 words or less if we can. So you can either do that individually, put them in individually, or if you can, put them in with commas in between, and then they'll come up as on the screen. So hopefully, if you can all see that now, you'll be able to start putting in some of your responses. Got a couple in knowledge, practice. Yeah, I think that's understanding. Oh, Head Start, like that one. We didn't see that one yesterday. Confidence, yeah. See things starting to come in. We've got a lot coming in for knowledge, which is good. Yeah, reassurance, understanding. Yeah, it's really useful to sort of see kind of your thoughts on it, from rather than what we just assume you want to get out of things. What influence? I like that one. Yeah, so we've got a few that are all kind of, so understanding and knowledge being the kind of main ones. They're slightly bigger, the ones that have got the most ones in common. Yeah, no, these are all really great, and actually there's a couple in here that are slightly different to what we had yesterday, which is really useful. So what we're going to do is we will compile these so that we can then share back with yourselves the kind of what the key themes are that came out between both sessions, not just this one. So hopefully you can all see some of those still coming in. I'll give you another second on that one. And what you'll see is there is another poll that's just come up onto your screen as well. Is also, if we would also like to find out what your main objective is, of what you hope to achieve by the end of beta. So you've got on here is a number of options. So if you don't mind just having a read through of those and picking which one for you is your main objective. So it's relatively kind of even split, although ensuring systems and data being fit for purpose is slightly ahead now. Just tally those ones, and yeah, if get the last couple in. But yeah, actually, unsurprisingly, very similar to what was yesterday. We ended up going in order from top to bottom yesterday. We've got a slight one with ensuring systems and data being fit for purpose at number 1. Then we've got overall improve overall organisation readiness in second. Then increase understanding of the new model and data platform. And then around operational changes being required for internally. So yeah, actually very similar to what we saw yesterday. So yeah, thank you very much for that. It's really, really useful for us to kind of gain a bit of an understanding about kind of where you are, where you're kind of thinking things will go as we get into beta. So what I'm going to do now is give you a bit of a kind of overview of kind of data features, also give you a bit of a some of the things that we're going to cover today. So today we are going to cover kind of we're going back to a bit of basics about what is a beta phase, why we're doing it, what our kind of expectations are within beta, kind of how we want to run it, kind of what tools and tasks you can expect to be doing, at least initially, how you'll be able to kind of feedback and engage with us and with others throughout this process, as well as kind of the next steps, and then an opportunity at the end for any Q&As that we have. So on the screen, we've got our very high level program timeline. So we've finished our alpha phase now. That was really successful. See, there's a couple of people here from our alpha phase. So again, thanks very much to them for their support and help throughout this. One of the things that we've done very recently, actually, it was only a couple of weeks ago now, is that we published the coding manual for the 22-23 collection. So the 22056 coding manual that is there now on the website for you to have a look at and to really sort of dig into the detail of. Then obviously our next big thing, which is why you're all here, hopefully, is around the start of beta. So again, that's due to start pretty imminently, hopefully in the next week or so. And again, that will give you access to the platform, and then you can start engaging with it, hopefully giving us some feedback and finding out as well kind of where you are in your journey as well. Then from there, we've then got the big countdown that we've got is around the new data items that need to be, or the new format that data needs to be collected in, is from the 1st of August 2022. Nice little stat for you as well. It's only 122 working days until we start collecting that data, until the 1st of August, which I know is a little bit terrifying, but actually hopefully now all the information that you need is out there. Everyone within HESA is on hand to be able to help in whatever way we can to kind of make sure you understand what the requirements are and how you can kind of engage with that internally as well. So other few things is our kind of is we've got our first submission, which is happening obviously in 22-23. That will be an annual collection. So we've got our final sort of submission dates, and our collection sign-off dates are looking to be in October of next year. Again, the HESA data platform will open in the early part of 2023. We haven't pinpointed an exact date for that one yet, but I know that some of you will be aware of is around the kind of mandatory trial requirement. There has been some internal conversations about that and about the requirements for it, and actually we think the reason for doing so was that it was a kind of a all around readiness, and actually we think there are other ways that we can track and monitor readiness. So we are putting other things in place around with other interim submission dates that are in earlier in the year. So that's why you will see that is no longer on this slide, but more detail will be coming on that in the coming weeks as to kind of what we'll be putting in its place. So the other things that we've been working on kind of internally within the program is that we've got a suite of e-learning that is now available. So that is really kind of out there and ready for you to use. So we've got the 22056 coding manual that's out. We've also got the e-learning that goes with that. We've also now got a suite of the actual introductory sessions where you can go on kind of actual training that's not necessarily with an actual person. They will be running between March and June of this year. So that all the details are on our website. So do obviously, if anyone, we'd obviously encourage you to do that. That is our kind of the last push that we've got before obviously the 1st of August collection date for you to really be able to kind of interrogate and ask us any questions. And as ever, we've always got lots of information on the website, so please do keep kind of checking back to it. We try and update within the kind of either the monthly newsletter or within the weekly HESA update. So we try and keep the information out there in as many places as possible. So I think that's kind of enough for me and sort of a general program update. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass over to Helen Bucks, who is going to give us a bit more detail on beta itself.
Thank you, Emily. Good afternoon, everybody. So what we thought we'd do first of all was kind of think about why a beta phase of a program of this scale is so important and why we're all here today, what it is really that beta seeks to achieve overall, and then we'll drill down into some of the more kind of detailed principles and objectives that we hope to achieve from this pilot. So beta is a really kind of crucial stage of the Data Futures development phase. It's much more rigorous. It's really there to kind of test the end-to-end functionality and carried out, of course, on a much larger scale of users. Whereas with Alpha, it was a much more kind of smaller subset of around 14 providers, where the intention was to conduct a more basic end-to-end testing of the functionality. So beta testing is really going to ensure that our new HESA data platform is robust and responsive, and also it will enable you to test your own systems and processes too. So the benefits are really twofold. So a bit of a timeline on the screen there. So where we are now and what we hope to achieve over the next kind of 10 months or so. We invited expressions of interest from the sector back in November. And beta itself will pretty much span from February through to August. And then we've got an extended sign-off period up until November. So where we're at now, we've got our first release of beta, which we are calling beta 1. That's going to be released this month. And we'll talk through, we're going to be doing beta in 3 phases. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a couple of slides' time, so you can understand why we're doing it in 3 kind of distinct phases. So let's drill down a little bit now into beta in more detail and what we are hoping to achieve from this phase. So participants will be expected to complete the beta phase using 21-22 data. We made this decision because it will ensure a more realistic submission, as the data will not have already been through any of our quality assurance processes before. We're using a single reference period from the 1st of August 21 until 30th of July 22, with an extended sign-off from the 1st of August 22 until November 22. So because during beta we're ensuring that the HDP is robust and responsive, we really want to make sure that wherever possible, you are submitting real data files, so that you're able to engage with the quality assurance processes. It's all about kind of replicating a real world data submission. There's no limits on file size, either upper or higher limits. And it's really important to emphasize as well that none of the data that's used during beta testing will be used for any regulatory or statutory purposes. So yeah, just to say again, the aim is really to kind of support the testing and your provider readiness ahead of the HDP opening for the 22-23 collection early in 23. So we really want to kind of get that close to real world experience, which is much more so during beta than it was in alpha. With Data Futures transitioning into a BAU activity, it makes sense for beta to replicate that as closely as possible. So we've not put a cap on applications for beta, as we communicated already. So we would encourage all providers to participate if they can, even if they may not be necessarily ready to submit a full file right from the start of beta. We're pleased to say that we've already had 132 expressions of interest from across the sector, and we are still, if anybody still wants to apply now, they still can. We're still open to any further interest in beta. So we're continuing to work on the functionality. All of our development teams are busy working on that still, and we're going to be releasing it in 3 incremental stages. And as I said before, we're going to be just explaining a little bit more about that in a few slides' time. It's also important to note that the user interface itself is still under development too. So some of the screens that you engage with in the system might be subject to further changes and refinement as we go through. But you will see that as once you've had a chance to interact with the system. Rules and credibility reports will continue to be released throughout the phase on a more regular cadence than the 3 kind of phases of functionality. From time to time, there might be a short period where the HTTP is unavailable for testing, and we'll be sure to give you any prior notice if that does happen. And of course, we will always be on hand to provide you with support and training throughout the phase. We've got lots going on in that area. And again, I've got more information about that to follow shortly. And we really want to kind of make this phase as collaborative as possible. So we do ask that if you identify any bugs or issues once you're in the platform, we'd like you to tell us about them, because that's ultimately why we're doing this phase of testing, so that we can identify and rectify any issues before we go live. So we do have a dedicated process for reporting any issues to us, which I will cover in the next couple of slides. So let's talk a little bit more now about those 3 beta phases that I mentioned. I'm actually going to hand over to Jackie. She's our product manager here at HISA. She's going to tell us more about those 3 phases. Thanks, Jackie.
Thanks, Helen. Hi, I'm Jackie Mansfield. I'm the product manager for Data Futures. It's just really exciting to be at this beta stage and to get to share our products. And it's a really big moment for the development teams, I'm sure you can imagine. It's a key stage for us, and to open it to so many providers, you know, is a big test. And we're delighted that so many of you are taking part in the beta test. I'm going to talk you through the releases. We're using agile methodologies, so it's an iterative process. And you can expect to see fixes and improvements throughout beta. And your input and feedback, as Helen said, is a valuable part of that cycle. In true agile fashion, things can move and change as we work through the backlog, and we continually look at prioritising the work, always looking to add value to our end users, which is you guys. And we really want you to have a good experience in the beta test, and for it to be as close as possible to a real collection. So in release 1, which is launching soon, you'll be able to make a submission, engage with the QA process, get a feel for the system, validate your data structures and your files, and try to get your heads around the new data models. Release 2, and remember I said how things can change, but the headlines hopefully will be that the migrated data for 2021 will be in HTTP, which will allow for further, more thorough QA process. And the IMS for credibility reports will be a new feature, and you'll be able to raise issues within IMS. We will also be launching the OVT, the online validation tool, which replaces the offline validation tool, which allow you to start testing and validating your data for the 22-23 release. And then finally, in release 3, we have focused on the features that are needed for the end of the collection, the end of the reference period, and all of the sign-off tasks. So over the course of the beta test, you will get the full end-to-end experience of a collection. As Helen mentioned, you might notice some of the UI is being updated. They're currently 2 styles, but they're quite similar. So hopefully the changes will be quite subtle and not create any confusion. And if there's any changes to what I've said, we'll communicate that via the website, and we'll make sure those beta phases pages are kept up to date. If there's any questions, I think you're putting them in the chat, aren't you? So shall I just hand back to Helen? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jackie. So just a little bit around the data requirements. So we are encouraging you where possible to use real data through this phase. And again, it's really so that we can mimic a normal collection. We're really looking to kind of get a very accurate picture of the 21-22 data that hasn't gone through those quality assurance processes, to give us that accurate picture. So while statutory customers will be engaging with the data to aid their own transition planning, it won't be used for any statutory or regulatory purposes. So here is just a little bit of an overview on some of the tools and tasks that we'll encourage you to engage with during beta. So the data entry tool will be provided alongside the HESA data platform, particularly useful for those of you who may not have your software solution in place just yet. You could use this to create small files and also to help cement your understanding of the data model. And we've had feedback from Alpha colleagues and Liaison about how helpful this has been for that purpose. We're not expecting everybody to be able to upload a full file right from the beginning. We do understand that this is going to be a gradual process as we move through the next few months. So yes, we will have the data entry tool available on the beta webpage at some point in the coming weeks. And we'd really encourage you to try and put through as many different types of provision and files through as you can. We'd really like to kind of get a whole range of scenarios there. Some of these examples of scenarios can be found in the e-learning. And yeah, maybe particularly any that have caused any issues in BAU previously would be particularly interesting. So once the beta system is live, we'd ask that you notify us with any and all feedback, as it will really help our teams to pinpoint any specific areas that do need to be addressed. So any general feedback, suggestions, comments, queries related to kind of the user experience as you interact with the system, please do go through to Liaison, because they'll all be on hand to help kind of take all of that feedback in one place, so that we're making sure that we've got it all stored centrally. But for any issues or bugs, we're channeling those down a slightly different route. So we're going to have a dedicated form available on the beta webpage, and that will just help us to gain very specific information about the bug that you found and all of the steps to recreate that issue, so that our development teams have everything they need to be able to take that issue and triage it as appropriate and get it fixed. So we will have more information on that on the beta webpage. We will also be publishing any known issues, so that you can see if something has already been reported. It will save you from having to report it again. So we do expect to receive quite a lot of feedback throughout this phase. And we will, of course, be managing it and prioritising it accordingly. Anything that might be classed as a minor issue or defect might not necessarily be fixed during the beta phase, but we will, of course, have it ready to address and fixed before the system absolutely goes live. So moving on to talk about some of the engagement and support that we will be offering and we've got available during this phase. So the beta webpage, which I've mentioned a few times, is that kind of single source of truth, that one-stop shop for everything that you're going to need throughout beta. We'll be updating it as frequently as needed, so please do refer to there for any key updates. Some of the elements that we will have on the beta webpage include more information about the beta phases that Jackie talked through just now. We'll have the login to the HESA data platform on there too. Any release history, upcoming releases, the known issues that I mentioned. We've got data model, specification guidance. We're also going to include a step-by-step of the stages of the data submission. So that will be complete with screenshots and information so that you can see exactly how that needs to be done. We've got a host of support materials as well. So for areas like IDS and the issue management system, that'll all be there. And also other introductory materials, such as the link to this webinar, any FAQs, things like that, that'll all be found on that beta webpage. We're going to be continuing to use our HESA weekly update emails as the main source of beta information. So there'll be a subsection within that update email for all things beta. So please make sure that you have signed up to that if you haven't done so already. We will also, occasionally we might send out focused beta emails to our IDS contacts. If, for example, there's a notification of a change that we need to let you know of, for example, a significant period of downtime, we'll do that in a separate email. So please look out for those as well. But as ever, liaison are always going to be on hand. The whole team are going to be equipped and ready to treat this effectively as a real collection over the next few months. So they will continue to be there to support you. We've also got some e-learning materials online. So we've got the Introduction to Data Future Student Record e-learning module, which was updated just last month in January. And that's worth 5.5 CPD hours. So I would encourage you to complete that course if you haven't done so already. We are also shortly going to be publishing a HDP video demo of the system, and that's a really kind of nice, succinct overview of the system design and capability, and that will also be on that beta page too. So that will be a very useful kind of overview. We're also planning to prepare and issue progress reports at the end of each release, and this will be a nice retrospective of what we've achieved as we work through beta. And we'll be publishing those on the website too. We will continue to attend sector events where we can to promote the key Data Futures updates, any milestones, and how we're progressing with beta. So we'll be there wherever we can. And we're also hoping to publish a full list of all the providers who are taking part in beta on the website by organisation name, but do let us know if you prefer not to be included on that list, and we won't put your name on there. And also we're going to be in the background working on various reporting mechanisms for our programme board and other key stakeholders, just to update them on how beta's going as an overall phase. And I'll now invite Laura Jackson, if Laura, you're on the call, to give us a bit of an overview to your live training webinars that you've got available for us.
Thank you, Helen.
Thank
Hi,
you.
everyone. I just wanted to sort of show my face and introduce myself, really. I'm Laura. I am sort of one lead trainer at the moment on the team, and it's going to be me delivering all of these Data Futures webinars. So if you're already signed up, wonderful. Look forward to seeing you there. But if you're not signed up already and you're, wondering if it might be for you, I thought I'd just give you a little bit more information. So there's a series of 11 webinars. And it's two different products, really. It's all an introduction to the record, but one type of webinar is aimed at those who've previously worked on the student alternative record, and then the other type is for those who've worked on student. And the whole point of doing it like that is so as I take you through the new model, we can draw parallels between what you already know, what's different, what's changed, that kind of thing. So I think we've had some queries already as to, is there going to be some sort of support for looking at differences between the records? Yes, this is it. So do come along. We've had a few questions about the current capacity on the events. The schedule that you can see on our website is the full schedule before the 1st of August. So that's why we're sort of saying quite urgently, make sure that you secure your place now, because we want everybody to have the opportunity to go. There is currently a cap of 2 delegates per provider across the whole series. And the reason why that is in place is because we want to make sure we can upskill everybody. And while they are online, we don't want it to be a total free-for-all, because then we'll lose the interactive element. The whole point of those webinars is that, we're going to be there, the experts, so you can ask us all of your questions, and we're hoping to answer as many as possible on the day, which is why we've still got a limit on those events. If you have got any questions, I know there's a Q&A section shortly, but otherwise, please pop us a message at our training inbox, training@hesa.ac.uk, and we'd be happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you, Laura. So just moving on now to a bit of a summary of kind of the key next steps with beta. So as we mentioned, the HESA data platform is due to open within the next week or so. We will be following up with an email to let you know once it's open. So you'll have all of the links that you need to access it. And But please note that you won't be able to access this until the participation agreement has been completed and returned, and then you have completed the IDS onboarding process. So as I say, yeah, first step would be to sign and return the participation agreement if not done so already. If you've got any outstanding queries that you need our help with, please do let us know. We'll then be sending out, Liaison will be sending out record contact forms, which need to be completed and returned, please. And then we'll make sure that the IDS role invitation is sent to that record contact, who will then be able to allocate the provider roles required in the HDP. We then encourage you to watch that training demo that we mentioned, which will be available shortly on the website, to help get familiar with some of the new processes and terminology and different parts of the system before you start interacting with the system yourself. We're also shortly going to be sharing a beta engagement survey via email, and we'd ask you to complete this, and it's just a short survey, but it will really help us to kind of understand where you're at in terms of how ready you are with being able to engage with beta and at what points over the next few months, and it will support us with our planning too as we go through the next phase of time. And then yes, as I say, when the system is ready to go, we'll notify you, and the link will be published on the beta website.